Probably somebody's birthday in here that's 60, so you didn't clap. Happy birthday to the 60-year-old. You're over 55 if my math is correct. I don't know if you kids in here know this, but there's something in Canada called old age security, which means that as long as you're 65 years old, you're going to get paid a whopping $713 per month for the rest of your life on old age security. That sounds a lot more like old age prison. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Kent Tilley, and you are very welcome for that absolutely incredible joke off the top. As you might imagine, today we're going to talk about OAS, and we're going to talk about three things regarding OAS. First, how it works, quite simple. Second, we're going to talk about the recovery tax, show an example. That's better known as OAS clawback. And then I'm going to discuss 9 ways that you can potentially minimize or avoid clawback in your retirement years. So, first let's talk about OAS, which is the simplest of the 3 pension plans in Canada. The other 2, of course, are CPP and GIS. But today we're just going to talk about old age security. So you can only start collecting OAS as long as you're 65 or older. What they're going to do when you're 65 years old, if you're eligible, is auto-enroll you. So if you want to delay taking OAS, then you have to opt out of that. If you opt out and later decide that you want to opt back in, you can retroactively opt back in and get 11 months paid back. Now, what happens with OAS is it's based on how long you've been in Canada for. So between the ages of 18 and 65, if you've been in Canada for 40 years, between 18 and 65, you're going to be eligible for maximum old age security, which today is $727.67 per month. Now, for each month that you delay taking OAS, you can receive a 0.6% increase to your payment. So if you delay the full 60 months until you're 70 years old, that means that your OAS payment from 70 until the day you die is going to be $989.63. However, at the age of 75, there's going to be a 10% increase. So if you took it at 65, you're getting $727.67. At 75, you're going to get an increase to $844, the 10% increase at 75. Old age security is 100% taxable as income. You cannot collect GIS unless you are collecting OAS, and same with the GIS allowance for a spouse that's under 65. The spouse that's 65 or over has to be collecting OAS for GIS or the GIS allowance to kick in. Each quarter, old age security goes up with inflation, so it's recalculated every quarter. So you see like a slight increase in your payments. So it's going to go up with CPI each quarter. And how does it work if you haven't been in Canada for 40 years? Well, it's based on how many years you've been in Canada. Or you have to have been in Canada for at least 10 years between 18 and 65 to collect OAS. So in my example, I always like easy mathematical examples. We'll talk about somebody that's been in Canada for 20 years out of the eligible 40. So they moved to Canada when they're 45, they live here till 65. Well, they're going to get exactly half of OAS. So it's the number of years, 20, divided by 40 equals 0.5 times the maximum OAS amount. So in this case, that would mean 727.67 times 0.5, or divided by 2, which is 363.84. So that's the partial calculation. Other than that, pretty simple. You really want to talk to somebody about timing your OAS and how that's going to be incorporated into your financial plan and your retirement plan. So that's what we're going to get into next. So, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our channel. We're super close to 20,000 subscribers. It would be awesome if you did. That's the thing that helps us out the most if you learned anything. So that would be great. Thank you very much. And now we're going to get into how OAS clawback or the recovery tax works. Basically, the government has decided, okay, you probably don't need OAS if you have a lot of income in retirement. So they say, if you make over this amount, we are going to start clawing back the amount you get until you reach like a number that's so high that you're no longer eligible for OAS whatsoever. So the example now, or the number now, is that if you make anything over 90,997 in 2024, your old age security is going to start being reduced. And it's reduced by 15 cents for every dollar over that amount that you earn. So here's my easy example again. Let's imagine that you make exactly $10,000 more than the minimum threshold. So you made $100,997 in net world income. And this kind of annoys me because this is like your income before taxes, but it calls it net world income, even though, net income, generally speaking, is what you earn after taxes and expenses and whatever. So that kind of bothers me, but whatever. So you made $10,000 over this limit. So you times that by 15%. 10,000 times 15% is $1,500. So your old age security is going to be reduced by $1,500. The amount that you have to earn in order for you to have all of your old age security clawed back is $148,451. So, and that number increases after 75. So because the amount goes up 10%, the clawback is going to be changed a little bit after 75. So after 75, in order to have it completely clawed back, you'd have to make $154,196. Let's talk about ways to minimize or avoid old age clawback or the recovery tax. Now, this is a problem that impacts very few Canadians because there's a very low number of Canadian retirees that actually make this much money, but it is seemingly a concern for potentially everybody for some reason. So we'll talk about it. Number one is managing your RSP withdrawals or your RIF withdrawals, especially early in retirement when you actually can make those decisions between 65 and 71. So you would never want to delay past 70 because there's absolutely no benefit to doing that. So, every once in a while you see people that don't even take it right at 70. So they've missed out on money that they're not actually going to get back. So this is where potential RSP meltdown strategies come in. This is where you can decide, okay, this is how we're going to do it, or move money from one section to another. Another thing that I would consider, let's say you own a rental property or you have a non-registered portfolio that has, potentially a huge unrealized capital gain. Well, you can make those big sales before you actually, start collecting OAS. That way you'll have less taxable income in those later years. So this happens quite a bit with rental properties where you say, okay, we're not going to do anything yet. We're just going to sell that, take that cash, redistribute it, and then start collecting our government benefits later and doing withdrawals from our taxable accounts. Income splitting after 65 with RSPs, your pension income, all of those things, that can reduce it. So let's say you have one spouse that has all the money and the other one doesn't, well, hopefully there's some income splitting strategies that you can implement so that you only have on paper like 50% of what your household income is. That should potentially reduce it. These things are sort of already set and they're already going to kind of happen. So most income splitting things need to actually be pre-planned, which a good example of this, so number 4 would be utilizing a spousal RSP for the lower income earning spouse. That way that you can manually do income splitting before the government actually does it. But this takes pre-planning. You can't really do this once you've got to that stage because there's attribution rules based on spousal RSP withdrawals. So you need to be cognizant of that. One of the big and easily the most confusing ones is your non-registered investment accounts and how they are earning income. Because shut, what is that? That's my phone. Shut up. So I'm just going to use an example again of, a simple example. You have $100,000 in a non-registered account that in 1 year made $10,000. So it depends how that money was made, and that's going to dictate how it's actually taxed. So if it's just in stocks that are, capital gains, you bought it for 100, goes up to 110, well, you're not actually going to be taxed unless you sell that. However, most people have portfolios that are buying and selling and doing things and whatever. So if you realize that capital gain of 10,000, the inclusion rate is 50%. So your taxable income is only going to be $5,000. Another way you can earn money is interest income. So say a GIC or, a bond or whatever. So that's going to be taxed at 100%. So if you made $10,000, that's just going to add $10,000 to your income. So that's like the least effective way to earn money. However, when OAS is considered, dividends actually aren't necessarily our friends that much. And that's the third way to make money. People say, okay, well, I made $10,000 in dividends, but what happens before you're taxed on the dividend income is there is a gross up of 138%, and then you get a tax credit that basically pulls your tax rate that you owe down to roughly the equivalent of what you'd owe on a capital gain. However, that means that if you earn $10,000 in dividends, you're actually going to show income on paper of 10,000 times 138%, which is 13,800. So if you have a lot of dividend income, that can actually show that you're making more money than you are, which could affect your OAS. So you need to consider that. One of the easiest, most simple ways to avoid this or reduce this is to maximize your tax-free savings accounts. There are tons of people that are using these incorrectly or not using them at all for whatever reason, just haven't been taught. So take any money that's in a taxable account and put it into a TFSA, then you won't have taxable income on that or anything on your withdrawals. Another one that bothers me is if you're making money, you're still working, then you're going to want to delay collecting OAS while you're making actual money. Because I've seen it before where people start collecting because they auto-enrolled and they work for another 2 or 3 years, don't collect anything, and don't get to benefit from the enhanced amount that they would have got of 0.6 per month. 7 or 8, I guess I would say if you have a lot of money, your retirement is totally in check, you're totally figured out, you got too much money and you have some kids or whatever, then you can say, well, let's gift them some money early. That way you have less money that's earning income, generating taxable income, and this is all going to stay in the family anyway, and so it's going to allow you to keep your OAS. And last but not least is if you are in a good position for this, you can consider putting some of your non-registered money into a participating insurance policy, participating whole life policy. That way, that money will actually be hidden from the CRA while it grows and pays these dividends and grows tax deferred like it would within an RSP or a TFSA. And you can, if you need to, which I don't love, get this money out through a loan later, which I would prefer. What you would do is say, this money is already allocated for our estate. We can hide it from the tax man, keep our OAS, and then increase the size of your estate because that will pay out tax-free to your beneficiaries. So it is certainly a way that you can do this. Does not work for everybody. None of them do, of course. But so lastly, I'll just kind of end with, there's a lot to this. I've always said this, like, this isn't rocket science. You don't need to overcomplicate things because you never actually know which way is going to win until you look back later and say, well, in hindsight, that decision would have improved our situation, whatever. You just need to know what your options are, be told about them, work with a planner or an advisor or somebody and say, okay, I'm comfortable with this strategy and using it going forward. And then you build that together and then you just say, okay, that's good. Hopefully you don't have to give too much money back to the CRA. I don't think average Canadians should. So that's something that we always try and focus on, and then just trying to help people make decisions that make them feel comfortable in retirement. So if you need help, you're curious about your own situation, please feel free to reach out to us at info@k4financial.ca. And thank you again for watching. We'll see you soon. Cheers.